Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode for the Fans Podcast. We are now in Wild Card Weekend. The regular season is over, and neither of our teams made it.
No, which let's talk about that for a second there because there was never an expectation that my team would make it.
My team
But
had a 99% chance to make the playoffs.
y'all fumbled the bag on that
Ugh.
one.
Here's the sad thing. I wanted to send this to you because I've seen it so much, but I'm also terrified to send it to you because it just makes me sad. There is a 2-minute long video of Jaguars wide receivers just dropping would-be touchdown passes from Trevor Lawrence. And I'm just like, if we came down with a quarter of those, we probably would have won one or two more games and be in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I know it's not going to make a difference either because I don't know if this would determine whether the Bears would get more wins or not, but I watched a big old clip today of a bunch of roughing the passer calls that should have probably been called on Justin Fields and they weren't. There's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda once we go into the postseason. And, I think there's a lot of teams that say to themselves, okay, we're going to make a change here. There's some things that we're going to adjust to. And then there's a couple of other teams that decide to blow it all up. Case in point, Shane, our teams, they're going to make some changes here. We don't know what some of them could be or how extensive they could be. I think there's probably going to be some coaching changes. Some roster,
My team has fired basically the entire defensive coaching team.
Mm-hmm.
And there's rumor going around right now that they may cut ties with the GM, which I'd be fine with.
Hey, there you go. That's Bulky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he not your GM anymore, or?
No, Bulky's still the GM. I just don't like him.
Yeah, no, I understand. And then as for me, for the Bears, we fired Luke Getsy today, but we're going to keep Eberflus. And I don't have positive feelings on that. Although I know he did good things for the defense, I still don't like the idea of him as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's one for another. But ours, I feel like some of our roster, or some of our, leadership changes are pretty minor to a couple of other announcements that have come out over the past few days, including some today.
Yeah, Pete Carroll has been let go of his tenure, but he is still staying on the team and working in the office, if that makes sense for everybody.
Yes, so it's almost like he was forced into an early retirement.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of retirement, college football real quick. Nick Saban, legendary head coach, has retired.
As much as I hated Saban, the dude was the GOAT. Mm-hmm. He was the GOAT of college football coaching. Like, there's never going to be another like him, I feel like.
And he's not as bad as Urban Meyer.
No, yeah, it's one of those crazy things because you have a lot of players, I guess you could say, from our era, Shane. Players, coaches, notable figures who are calling it a career.
Yeah,
and
I messaged you earlier saying this is the first playoff game without Brady or a Manning.
Yeah, and it feels weird too, the fact that Pete. Yeah, that's a long time. And it also feels a little weird too that we're not going to see Pete Carroll here. As a coach moving into the next season. The nonstop gum chewing, the pure look of disappointment that rings through my mind whenever I think of the Malcolm Butler interception in Super Bowl 49.
Should have ran the ball.
Yeah, should have run the ball with Marshawn. But but here's the big thing, Shane. That one was probably the most shocking out of all of these coach firings. Mm-hmm. There's the other ones we got to talk about here. The Titans one, I'll admit I'm a little shocked. I'm a little shocked they let go of Vrabel.
Oh, so many people are saying that letting Vrabel go was a mistake because Vrabel was not the issue. The team just had nobody on it.
That's what I thought, too. I don't know if that was the right call. That leaves two other teams that have fired their coaches recently, which, yeah, I pretty much believe was the right call. The Commanders were going nowhere with Ron Rivera. That much is clear. They've got new ownership, which means they'll probably want to do some sort of splurge to make things potentially more competitive. And the Falcons. And the Falcons one, I feel like, yeah, Arthur Smith was probably on his way out anyway, but I think what probably cemented that case was that outburst he had at the end of the game with the Saints. That was pretty noticeable and kind of hard to cover up how embarrassing that looked.
I mean, the Saints were also just running up the score on them to make him look bad.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he was already on the way out, so I
Yeah.
mean, are we really surprised? But
Now, I
here's
will
the thing.
say... Oh, go ahead.
No, you finish up what you're gonna say.
I was going to say, I will say, another thing that's surprising is that Derrick Henry, the longtime Titans running back and basically the foundation of that team, he is most likely going to be somewhere else in that season. So, while not a coach,
Mhm.
a big impact player for this team and basically their franchise player may not be there anymore.
We have a couple of players who there's some question marks as far as where they are going to be next season. Derrick Henry is a big one. Until we hit the draft, Justin Fields will be one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Saquon Barkley is another. There's a lot of questions about Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins for the Bengals.
Man, I want T. Higgins as a Jaguar so bad.
Oh, I would love T. Higgins to be a Bear. I mean, I understand.
Hey,
Other
you
ones
guys,
to
you guys
add
should
in there
lock up
too.
Marvin Harrison Jr. You'll be fine.
I know that's a good point, but maybe maybe I want to get a little greedy and have DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison Jr., and T. Higgins. Just saying. Actually, I'd take Tyler Boyd too at that point instead of T. Higgins and feel
Yeah, but
comfortable.
T. Higgins has that Clemson royalty. Might as well join the Clemson royalty going on in Jacksonville right now.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good call. Other names to keep an eye on. There's still some concern as far as what's going to happen with Austin Eckler. You got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams still with the Chargers as well. What's going to happen there? You got Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Man, that whole scenario is just baffling to me.
Yeah. But that's players. We need to talk about coaches here because obviously that was kind of the big thing that changed here. We now have 6
13?
teams.
Oh, I was like,
No, we have 7 teams. We have 7 teams that need a new head coach as of right now because they've already gotten rid of their coach. So which team? So here's the question: which team has the biggest need of making the right hire to help right and fix their franchise? Or maybe more to that, which team has the most to lose by making the wrong hire? What are your thoughts on
ooh.
that?
Honestly, I gotta go with the Chargers for mine.
You know, a lot of people are saying the Chargers for that one, and I think that makes sense because of the talent that's already there that's just not being utilized. But I also want to throw this in there for that too. With the Chargers, it may be almost just even more important to get a better GM than it is
Mm-hmm.
a head coach because that GM needs to sift through what players are they going to keep.
Yeah, because, I mean, I can see Austin Eckler leaving. I can see Mike Williams or Keenan Allen leaving. One of them will probably be gone.
Do you think that maybe even if they don't get a knockout coaching hire, like, maybe someone who's decent, do you still think they could potentially do well, the Chargers, with the talent that they have?
They have so much talent that it would be disappointing if they aren't able to improve because this season was bad for them.
I see it this way with the Chargers. At this point, if they get an offensive-minded coach, they're going to be fine. Brandon Staley was defensive, and he couldn't even really get that right with them. And we always talk about defensive coaches; they don't really exactly do well in the head coach situation. So I believe that the Chargers, the future is still technically looking bright, regardless of what potential coach you could hire. Obviously, you still want to make the right hire. That's just my thought with the Chargers. I would say the same situation exists for teams like the Raiders, for the Seahawks, for the Falcons, just because there's still talent there. You know what I mean?
I think the Falcons is another good one that a lot of people look over, but I'm like, the Falcons have a lot of very high-profile young players. Just need a couple more pieces and a good coaching staff, and Falcons could be a dangerous
Mhm.
team.
I absolutely agree. And I think the Commanders is another one there too, where they have cap space for one and they have a high pick for another. And they could potentially do some smart things here this offseason with their new ownership. They get a good coach to go in there with them too, and they could be really, really good moving forward here.
I mean, they have a top
Oh,
3 picks, so they're looking at either Drake May, Caleb Williams, or Marvin Harrison Jr., which none of those 3 picks would be that bad.
although I would say this too, I believe after the championship game, I think players like Michael Penix and JJ McCarthy bumped their stock up
Michael
as
Penix is
quarterbacks.
honestly, I think I might even have him as my quarterback 2, maybe 3 possibly.
I would not have Caleb Williams or Drake May in my top. I would certainly go more so for a Jaden Daniels or a Bo Nix, even
Bo
before
Nix,
even a
yeah.
Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy. But going back to what we were saying though with the coaching situation, here's just my take on it. I believe that no team has to get the head coach right. No team has to get it more correct than the Carolina Panthers because
Yeah.
whatever coach they hire has to hitch their wagon to Bryce Young and make him succeed. I actually think that Bryce Young's got a lot more talent that we just haven't been able to see in the NFL because he has nothing to work with
And I'll give them that.
on that roster. I believe that he has a lot more talent that he could bring out. But the problem is he had nothing to work with. Frank Reich couldn't make it work. The ownership there obviously isn't great right now. Whether you want to take whatever you want to pick out with David Tepper right now, they consider him a terrible owner anyway. You can talk about the fact that he threw drinks at Jaguars fans. You can talk about apparently his name was on the Epstein list. But more, it's a thing too. Just when we're talking about the head coaching situation themselves, the Panthers have basically thrown a lot of their future here and a lot of their potential into Bryce Young, a small quarterback who is in a struggling roster right now and on a team that has been on the downside for a long time, making a head coaching change yet again. He's now this new head coach is going to be the third head coach since Ron Rivera left for this team. And another thing to add to that too is now what do? They traded up to get Bryce Young, and now they've lost a chance where they could have gotten the number one pick again to maybe take someone, whether it is Caleb Williams or not. And they're probably feeling pretty bad about themselves right now because they took Bryce Young at number one, and who went number two and has his team in the playoffs.
CJ Stroud, which honestly I was always higher on Stroud than Bryce Young. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Bryce Young is bad. CJ Stroud's
And see,
God.
I wasn't.
Oh, you
I
were
wasn't.
higher on Bryce?
I did not think CJ Stroud was going to pan out. I actually thought he was a bust. And part of me is probably thinking that because he was an Ohio State quarterback.
See, I will agree with you on that. I don't necessarily think he was going to be as good as he is, but I definitely thought he was better than Bryce Young.
Okay, and yeah, see, I thought about it differently. I really thought that Bryce Young was going to be the better. Well, truth be told, if we go back to what we said at the beginning of the season, I thought Anthony Richardson was going to be the best one out of the top quarterbacks. And maybe he still can be. We don't know.
We haven't seen enough of Richardson, which is the only reason I'm like, I don't want to talk about him because we haven't seen what Anthony Richardson could do. Because honestly, I think Anthony Richardson landed in one of the absolute best spots of all the quarterbacks. He just got hurt.
But the thing is CJ Stroud, I was so wrong about him because he made things work with that Texans team.
And that Texans team did not have a lot before he joined it.
No, exactly. But I mean, yes, they found some gold. They got Will Anderson on top of that. Tank Dell ended up being an absolute dime.
Tank Dell was hurt. Like a what, 4th, 5th round pick?
Something like that. But then again, let's look at it for this year. You look at some. Come on, man. You got Puka Nacua who came in later rounds this draft too, and look what he's turned into. So we can't say anything about that because yeah, Tank Dell's a dime, but there's more than just him who came out of this draft. That was
Puka fell very far. Sam Laporta fell to like. Sam Laporta fell pretty far. Tank Dell was pick number 69.
Nice.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, man, no wonder he's doing so good.
I love it. Anyway, but going back to what I was saying, the Panthers have to be the ones who get this right the most. Because if they screw it up again, I don't know what that franchise is going to do.
I say it's also hard because I think everybody is looking at the Panthers right now. It's like they don't have a good owner. They've been a bad team. They don't have any weapons. They don't even have a draft pick for the new head coach to work with. So it's going to be very hard to be like, hey, come be our head coach, because it's not very appealing, the situation in Carolina.
Well, and it's been bad for the coaches of the past too. I mean, Ron Rivera was basically run out on a rail. And then Matt Rule was not impressive at all either, and it just ended up being a big old disaster too, because Matt Rule is still getting paid by the Panthers to not coach their team. And then Frank Reich doesn't even make it a full season. Then the Frank Reich one is tough too, because I really just think that just came down to David Tepper just saying, all right, well, you didn't work, bye. Because, hear me out on this one. It was clearly so atrocious how the play was going for Nathaniel Hackett, why he got let go early, because it was like a thing of, it's like, Russ was already going downhill, and the Broncos had such high expectations. Of course, they're going to put the blame on the head coach and can him early. Whereas we didn't have high expectations for the Panthers. Same situation with Urban Meyer and the Jaguars. They let him go early because he was being an idiot. There were clear reasons for Urban Meyer and Nathaniel Hackett to get fired before they finished the regular season. I don't think that there was enough evidence, apart from the fact that, okay, you just weren't winning games, that they got rid of Frank Reich.
Yeah, honestly, I think Frank Reich was done a little dirty to even make it like one full season. And when you're dealing with a rookie quarterback on a team that already did bad before, there's gonna be some growing pains going on.
Well, and case in point too, they made the mistake too, because let's call a spade here, Shane. Before this, the shakeup of the roster did, before the Panthers got Bryce Young, who was the best player on the Panthers roster?
CMC.
Oh, okay, so let's go a little bit in there in between. Yeah, because you're right. I forgot that McCaffrey, obviously, they had done the trade with the 49ers. But before they got Bryce Young, and after they had traded McCaffrey, who was the best player on the team?
I couldn't DJ Moore. I was like, it was DJ Moore, who also got traded away.
Exactly. So they gave away everything that they had to work with. The only bright spots on that roster when they went into the slump, they gave them to the Bears and to the 49ers. Wow, Commanders, did you take a leaf out of the playbook of the Panthers? Because you did the same thing with Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Sent them to the Bears and the 49ers too. I didn't even think about that. That's funny.
I'm not going to lie. The Bears fleeced the Panthers so much in that trade.
Oh, it was beyond unbelievable. Anyway, I'm just going back to what we were saying. At the end of the day, there's so much riding on the future here for the Panthers, and with what little they have, that they have to hope that they can somehow hit it out of the park with a coach who just ends up being an improvement that helps make Bryce Young better and lasts longer than you had the 10 years of coaches like Matt Rule, like Steve Wilks in between, and Frank Reich.
Yeah, man, I'm glad I'm not a Panther fan.
Oh my gosh, it's got to be so miserable.
I know so many people that literally were just like, nope, I've given up on the Panthers. I'm changing teams now.
Yeah, I totally understand that. How about this? One more thing that we got to add, though, for the coaches, though, before we go into our wows and our woes, and of course, Wild Card Weekend. Is there another team that you think could let their head coach go? Because look, there's still been chatter about Bill Belichick. It seems like the Bears are going to stick with Eberflus, but you never know. Cowboys, there's always Mike McCarthy's job if the Cowboys underperform in the playoffs. Saints, I don't think they're sold on Dennis Allen. Is there a franchise in need of a head coach that's already dumped their head coach, or is willing to dump that head coach to hire a Jim Harbaugh, who may be primed to return to the NFL? I listened to a radio show yesterday that really was talking a lot about that. They feel that Harbaugh is making a return to the NFL, and the question is, what team does he go to? What are your thoughts on that, Shane?
I have two teams in mind, and the obvious one, which I feel like is the popular one, is the LA Chargers. I feel like that one is constantly talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, I honestly would say maybe the Seahawks.
One actually could be really good.
Especially with Pete Carroll still in the office a little bit. I mean, honestly, having Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh together, kind of making some decisions.
It's Carroll. You're killing me. It's Pete Carroll. You're killing me.
Man, it's been a long week.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
No, I get where you're coming from. I know 49ers fans are probably screaming at that possibility, whether that he does go to one of their in-state rivals or to one of their division rivals. They'd probably be freaking out right now. But that is the area outside of Michigan itself and Chicago where Harbaugh had played. Those seem to be the two areas that Harbaugh likes to go. He either likes to go to the Pacific Coast or he likes to be in the Midwest. Because, I mean, he was at Stanford. He brought up, Andrew Luck and Christian McCaffrey. And he goes, then he's with the 49ers and, does his thing there, gets him to a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. And then now he's at Michigan. He's won a national championship. I like your pick, honestly, as far as him potentially going to the Chargers, because he is a type of player that can develop offensively quarterbacks, like a Justin Herbert, or it's hard to say with the Seahawks because honestly, I don't know how much development you can get.
I don't know what's going on in Seattle as part of my issue.
Yeah,
They got weapons, but I don't believe in Geno.
I don't either. And I feel like, there's got to be some sort of coaching change there. Or not coaching, excuse me. There already was a coaching change. Quarterback change there that may be able to prolong the future that they have with the offensive talent that they do have. Whether it's Kenneth Walker or the receivers, that sort of thing. There's another one that's kind of been run around too. I actually heard it there's two other teams. Well, okay, one of them is the Commanders, which we've already talked about. They're looking for a head coach. But on that radio show, there was another team too, that there was a guy that was basically saying that the Philadelphia Eagles would end up firing Nick Sirianni and they'd find a way to get Jim Harbaugh.
Man, I've been hearing that too. It's wild.
Which I'm like, that's pretty wild. But at the same time, too, I think Eagles fans are literally ready to throw the book at Matt Patricia, Sean Desai. I forget his first name, but the OC Johnson and Nick Sirianni. They're just ready to literally take out every leading coach for the Eagles right now. Because I mean, since that game where they had that overtime thriller with the Bills. I mean, the Eagles were 10-1, and now they have the same record as the Bills after beating them in overtime.
Now, I'll say this. I know we're talking about Jim Harbaugh, but I feel like there's one coach who everyone is silently talking about and trying to get on their team, and that's Mike Vrabel.
Yes, that is a very good point.
Because, I mean, very, very popular rumor I've been hearing is that maybe the Patriots do what the Seahawks just did, move Bill Belichick into the office and hire Mike Vrabel to take over as the full-time head coach.
Now, Vrabel would work well with the Patriots because he's familiar with the Patriot way, and Vrabel would easily be better than getting Josh McDaniels or someone like that.
Or Bill O'Brien again.
Oh, jeez. But do you trust Bill Belichick in the front office? Because he hasn't exactly been great with draft picks.
Yeah, I mean...
There's kind of a reputation that Bill is not good when it comes to the draft.
And that's saying if the Patriots want to be nice. I honestly don't see the Patriots being that nice to Bill Belichick and just being like, okay, you done great for us, see ya.
Yeah. I'm not sure on that one. I think it'd be a good pairing. I think Mike Vrabel is honestly probably one of the most desirable head coaching candidates outside of Harbaugh, if Harbaugh does decide to return. Outside of this point, if Harbaugh decides, no, I'm staying in Michigan, which it seems he could very well do that, and I wouldn't surprise me if he did, I think Vrabel would kind of become the number one target.
Oh, I agree.
Because unlike these other coaches like McDaniels or Rivera, well, Rivera's washed. He's done. Staley, McDaniels, they were never good to begin with. Pete Carroll, he's staying with the Seahawks in an advisor role. Arthur Smith, never really good to begin with. Frank Reich, he's probably more than happy to just sit on the couch and just enjoy getting paid to do nothing for the next little while.
I mean, if you saw his contract, I'd kind of be the same way.
I would too. It's like Jimbo Fisher for Texas A&M. I'm going to get paid $70 million for the next few years to do nothing? Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway, let's move on here into our wows and our woes. We got to talk about some of these games before we go into Wild Card Weekend here. Shane, will you kick us off?
Yeah, so the first one I got the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins, which I feel like was a very fun game to watch. Mainly because the AFC East division winner came down to this game between these two teams, and the Bills won 21-14, which puts them in second seed and knocks the Dolphins down to what? 5 seed, I think?
6.
Oh, wow, 6. Okay.
6 seed.
Well, anyways.
Yeah, Browns are the 5 seed.
Oh, wow. Man, the Browns being the 5 seed. And everyone was like, oh, the Browns are horrible. And now they're the 5 seed and doing very well.
I'd like to point out, though, that we were two of those people who were kind of bagging on the Browns in the preseason, being like, there's no way these guys are good.
Oh, 100%. Sad thing was, they got better when they had, like, a 4th string backup.
You say this in a way of it's surprising that somehow Joe Flacco is better than a washed Deshaun Watson. I ain't surprised.
Fresh off the couch, Joe Flacco wasn't even practicing or training at all. He was just on his couch chilling.
Hey, maybe Deshaun just wanted to get hurt for all we know, because then
More time at the
basically
masseuse.
more time getting his shoulder massaged, if you know what I mean. Okay, we're not going there. Let's move on. Hey, woo!
But now with the Dolphins' loss, honestly, a lot of people are throwing around the NFL script, and I can see why. Because now the Chiefs and the Dolphins play each other in what could be Tyreek Hill's revenge game. Although Tyreek Hill is a little bit banged up going into the game, and it's going to be on Saturday game and one of the coldest playoff games in a long time. So that's going to be fun.
I have a little bit more to talk about that, but I'll save that for when we get to our actual matchup here. So yeah, go on to the next game.
All right. Then next up, we got the LA Rams versus the San Francisco 49ers, which the Rams won 21-20. Now, yes, the 49ers were resting a lot of players, and so were the Rams, because win or lose, the 49ers were locked in at their number one seed, and I believe win or lose, the Rams were locked in at their spot. So this was kind of just this was kind of just a throwaway game, but the biggest thing to note is that the Rams played one of their best starters, and we talked about him earlier, in Puka Nacua.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they played him is because Puka Nacua was very, very close to breaking the all-time rookie wide receiver record for yards and catches, and playing this game, he broke that record, and then they immediately pulled him out.
Yep. Which is the right thing to do.
Yep, and now the Rams go into Wild Card Weekend having another revenge game where they will be traveling to Detroit as Matthew Stafford has his revenge game against the number 2 seed Detroit, and honestly, I feel like he's going to get a standing ovation from Lions fans.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, honestly, Matthew Stafford's one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it.
Well, and it took so long for him to finally get that win, and he did, and obviously it was momentous. Well, I know the Lions fans are a little sad that it wasn't with them.
I mean, he led Calvin Johnson to an all-time receiving record. He's led Cooper Kupp to a triple crown in some records, and now he's led Puka Nacua to the rookie wide receiver records. Just he's caused 3 of his players to break records, so you can't.
You gotta remember too. This guy is tough as nails.
Oh,
I mean, you know, still playing in a game even though he knows his shoulder is dislocated, playing with a broken back. I mean, that's Stafford for you.
He will dislocate his shoulder, run to the sideline, pop his shoulder back in place, run out, immediately throw a touchdown pass, and then sprint off the field.
That Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality for football.
Man.
I love it.
I love Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, so that's going to be a good one to keep an eye on.
Oh, that's probably my pick of the week for best game.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that one. 2 more games to go through here really quickly. We got to cover the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans, with the Texans winning it 23-19, which, as many remembered, that solidified the Texans' spot in the playoffs, knocked the Colts out, and then, of course, sorry, Shane, but when the Jaguars lost and the Texans got to win the division, they moved up from the 7th seed to the 4th seed. How awesome is that?
Hey, I'm rooting for the Texans. I want them to do well.
And now we got to have the question of, do they have what it takes to make a deep run in the playoffs? We'll talk about that as we go into our matchups this week. The Colts, it came up short with a dropped pass. And look, I don't know if you necessarily, I think there's shared blame there from what I was watching, because I watched that game. Wasn't a great pass by Gardner Minshew, but it was also a really bad drop by Goodson. So it just kind of came down to a whole slew of bad luck there, and that ended their postseason dreams. Could the situation have been different with Anthony Richardson under center? I don't really know, because as we've talked about in a previous episode, we believe that Gardner Minshew is one of the better backup quarterbacks out there.
Minshew goes to a team and be the possible starter.
Right. And so here's what I'm going to say at that. I think Shane Steichen has done a really good job in his first year, almost getting the team to the playoffs, improving the situation for the Colts. What is going to ultimately make the difference for the Colts next year is to go into the season and get through the season without all the bull. None of this Jonathan Taylor drama that we were having at the beginning of the season. None, and then hopefully with a healthy Anthony Richardson, who's ready to come back and play with a fire in his heart. I think when those 2 things happen, plus whatever the Colts are also able to do in this offseason, it's a win. and the Colts will get a chance to come back to the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I feel like the AFC South is going to be a terrifying division next year.
Yeah, well, they were very competitive this year, that's for sure.
Except for the Titans.
Except for the Titans, but they, for some reason, decided to get it together at the very end just to screw over the Jaguars.
Yeah,
so
it's because we kind of screwed them over last year, so I get it.
Yeah. it was payback.
It kind of was.
Yeah. The other game, it's funny though that you're just like, yeah, we deserved that. Whatever. Moving on. Okay, so yeah, the other game, the Eagles and the Giants, with the Giants winning 27-10. This game was so funny to me. Like, what the heck?
I'm telling you, the Eagles look like the worst team right now.
I get that they were missing their key starters, but they had a huge losing streak headed into the playoffs. That's not what they wanted because they were hoping to have a rebound before they got to the playoffs. They're having issues with play calling. The entire Philly fan base is against the coaching staff right now. And now you've got situations with some key players like A.J. Brown who are hurt. And then you got Jalen Hurts on top of that too, who jacked up his finger. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yeah, I saw.
So the injuries are mounting up, and that does not bode well for a team that had huge Super Bowl aspirations and at one point was primed to be the best team in the NFL. It's a problem. It's a problem, and we're going to talk about it more as we get into our matchup. But we do need to touch on the Giants here real quick because they got to win in the regular season. And now what happens into the offseason? We first got to talk about the offensive side. What happens with Daniel Jones and his contract? Because it's a big contract, and I'm not sure anyone wants to pay Daniel Jones for him to go to another team.
Honestly, I think the Giants are keeping him.
Yeah, and then you got Saquon Barkley. What happens to him? He doesn't want to be franchise tagged again. Does Tommy DeVito have potential? Or are the Giants going to try and see if they can jump up and get one of those top quarterbacks? How do you fix the O-line? Here's another big one, too. I don't know if you saw this, but there was some big old brouhaha with the defensive coordinator and Brian Daboll. And basically that defensive coordinator blew his top and cussed out Brian Daboll in a meeting because his assistant coaches were fired, and then he just up and left and quit the team.
Oh, dang. I did not see that.
That just... Already, it's the end of the regular season, already we're having just a gigantic mess, drama fest over in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Not only for the Giants, but for the Jets as well. Both those teams, I think, are just... They're looking messy going here into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants are a weird team. I think they have to hold on to Daniel Jones because we talked about it when he got that contract extension that it was a mistake.
It was. And we said, why didn't you give the money to Saquon instead of Daniel Jones?
And now Saquon will probably walk somewhere else and perform well. Daniel Jones is going to hold the Giants back and keep them out of being actual contenders for a long time. Tommy DeVito... We may never see his potential because as long as Daniel Jones stays healthy, we may never really see Tommy DeVito again because I don't think any team's going to want to take a chance on him quite yet.
And if the Giants do decide to pull the trigger and still get another quarterback in this draft, then yeah, you can bet that Tommy DeVito is gone to the bottom of the totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we need to go into our trending up and our trending down? We do that before.
Trending down.
All right, trending up here. Teams. I think the Texans are the biggest one.
Oh yeah, love me some Texans.
Into this. Yeah, they're a big one.
I was gonna say, I gotta say, I feel like we gotta put the Browns on trending up.
Yep, and I think the last one you gotta put on there is the Rams. The Rams are looking good here.
Yes, they are.
Heading into the postseason. Trending down, big one. Philadelphia Eagles. No surprise. Yep. Miami Dolphins. Got to be another one. If we got to throw another one in there, that's basically just probably the Seattle Seahawks because they technically could have had a chance to make the playoffs, but things just didn't work out in their favor, and they ended up losing out. And then the Packers get the last spot.
Yeah, very, very sad the Packers are in it.
You and me both.
Ugh, hate the Packers.
Let's talk about our wild card weekend matchups then. The first one we got. Gonna be a good one. Deshaun Watson's former team versus his current team, but he ain't even playing. We got the number 4 Houston Texans versus the number 5 Cleveland Browns, which, mind you, this is gonna be played in the same stadium that hosted the national championship game on Monday. Boy, that stadium staff is busy this week.
Yeah, they
are. So we need to talk about this really quick before we go into our pick, Shane. What do you think? What do you think in this game will determine the Texans winning?
I think what it'll come down to, and this is kind of tough for me, I think it's going to come down to CJ Stroud and how well he does at evading the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Which, I mean, we're going to go right into this as well. What will it take the Browns to win? They're going to have to get to CJ Stroud.
Which a biggest thing is their defense healthy enough? We know their defense has been good all season, but they've been banged up recently. So can the defense put enough pressure on CJ Stroud to essentially win the game? Because I'll be honest with you, as good as Joe Flacco has been in his return, it's still the defense has still been the strength of the Browns.
Oh yeah.
So Browns get it right on the defense and they make it tough enough for a Stroud. Yeah, I say it's over. But the thing is we disagree on our picks for this game. You say the Browns will win this game, and I say it'll be the Texans. I still feel like CJ Stroud is going to find some way to get his team to a win. And I think the Browns defense, the way that they've been all a little banged up, is going to cause some problems. One costly mistake for Flacco could easily change the tide. I think at this point the Texans are riding on enough momentum from what had happened, in this past week, that might be enough to override the Browns, who have settled into a little bit more of a comfortable feeling of, hey, we're in the playoffs. Now let's just see what happens.
And for me, I think what this comes down to is that I think this honestly may be one of the Texans' toughest games on their way to the Super Bowl, because neither of these teams have anything to lose.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes this matchup so intriguing.
Yes, and that's the reason I'm saying the Browns, because I think the Browns' defense just is healthy enough to make the big plays. I think that they will carry it, but honestly, this game was a coin flip for me, and I just look at it going, I think the Texans can very easily win it because both of these teams are going to be scrappy, feisty, and both of them want to win and continue on in the playoffs.
Yeah, could have said it better myself. Matchup monster. If it is the Texans, it's CJ Stroud. It has to be.
See, I'm going to have a different one.
Okay.
I'm going to have Nico Collins.
He's
been getting a lot of targets lately.
Yep. Can the Browns defense utilize that? Can they recognize that and make a stop?
Yeah. Sadly, Dameon Pierce isn't what he used to be.
Oh, it's very true. Now it's all been Devin Singletary who's been doing the work for them there.
Yeah.
Okay. How about number 3 Kansas City Chiefs versus the number 6 Miami Dolphins? This is at Arrowhead on Saturday night. Shane, why will the Chiefs win this game?
Mahomes being playoff Mahomes.
Yep, and okay, let's just move into it before we go into it. Why will the Dolphins win?
Honestly, Dolphins will win because I feel like the Dolphins just have a better functioning offense.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you brought that up. Again, we disagree on this one. You picked the Dolphins to win. I picked the Chiefs on this one. I am going with the Chiefs based off of past precedent. Tua Tagovailoa is 0-4 in games where temperature is below freezing.
Oh, man.
And what is going to be happening at this game? It is going to be one of the coldest playoff games on record, they're predicting.
Yep.
For that very reason, I have the Chiefs winning solely because I think the Dolphins' offense is going to struggle in the weather. And you've got Tyreek Hill, who's not at 100% health, whereas the Chiefs, yeah, they have been not great lately, but I also do wonder, and again, this game is going to prove it for me, I also do wonder if they have just been playing at a mediocre level, waiting for the playoffs to come, and then they flip the switch. You know what I mean?
Travis Kelce is back to prime Kelce again.
I'm wondering if that could be the case.
How many times do you think we're going to see Taylor Swift?
Okay, I don't want to talk about that. More what I want to talk about is, and I wouldn't be surprised too if maybe, just maybe as part of this, Andy Reid takes back play calling duties from Matt Nagy.
Now, I will say this, to go on the flip side of it. I think the Dolphins will win because the Dolphins, they got Tyreek Hill banged up. They're playing in a very, very cold game. I think they're going to try to take a lot of pressure off of Tua missing his best wide receiver and knowing how cold it's going to be. I think that they're going to rely heavily on their run game.
Yes, between Achane and Mostert.
And Achane and Mostert have been a fearsome duo this season.
Yes. And I would put more of the faith in them than I would in Tua, but I also feel like the Chiefs' run defense, it does well. So maybe the biggest thing also too is, will the receivers for the Chiefs wake up? That's a big question.
All up to you, Rashee Rice. You're the only reliable receiver that's not a tight end.
It's true. Get Marquez Valdez-Scantling and freaking Kadarius Toney out of there.
Man, if the Chiefs trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr., the league is dead.
Oh my gosh, please no.
Okay,
matchup monster for this game. I'm gonna go with Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce. I'm gonna go with Devon Achane.
Yep, good pick. Good pick. Okay, let's go through this one pretty quickly because I feel like this one is such an easy pick.
Yeah.
We've got the number 2 Buffalo Bills versus the number 7 Pittsburgh Steelers at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo. That's going to be a cold one too. Not like it necessarily matters for the Steelers like it does for the Dolphins, but why will the Bills win? Because they're the better team. That's why. Because they are the better team, and why? Because we have to answer the question is why will the Steelers win? Well, the Steelers would only win if. I mean, I guess the Steelers could win if Josh Allen does Josh Allen things.
TJ Watt isn't even going to be playing this game.
And that's the biggest reason why. How do you stop a Bills offense that is still high-powered, whether you like it or not, with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, when you don't have TJ Watt? And on the other side, it kind of seems like, especially in the game against the Dolphins, the Bills' defense woke up and is playing at a high level again. Mason Rudolph's got no chance.
No.
Matchup monster in this game.
The Bills.
Yeah, really just the Bills in entirety. If I have to pick someone particularly, give me Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, going the tight end route. I love it.
Going with another tight end. Okay. Dallas Cowboys and Green Bay Packers at AT&T Stadium. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Packers have actually owned the Cowboys in their own stadium for the past several years.
Especially during the playoffs.
Yep, so why will the Cowboys win this game?
Honestly, I gotta go with the Cowboys defense and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has turned on the Jets in the past few games, so I don't think the Packers stand much of a chance.
I believe that so here's the thing. We've seen that the Packers defense is good at bringing the blitz, which could make things difficult for Dak Prescott, but we also have to remember too, we've seen the Packers defense look tough in bringing the blitz, because the thing is I'm not giving any high praise for the Packers defense. Joe Barry is awful, and the Packers defense really isn't that good. The problem is they look good when they're playing against offensive lines like the ones that the Vikings and the Bears had. The offensive line for the Cowboys has Zach Martin on there. That is a good O-line. So I think that's different, and that's going to make it harder for them to essentially give problems to disrupt Dak Prescott, and then he has the CeeDee Lamb connection there. That's deep, that's tough, and on the other side of the ball, at least for the time being, I can't say it's going to last for the entirety of the playoffs because Cowboys are going to do Cowboys things in the playoffs. They're going to choke it, but it is going to be enough that they get a win over the Packers. Now, and we both agree on this. Now, why will the Packers win? Because there's the precedence behind it, and somehow they manage to own the Cowboys in this situation. Jordan Love has been playing well, and I think if Jordan Love does continue to play well, then yeah, they could get the win. But they need the Cowboys to beat themselves to do it.
And I don't see that happening. I think the Cowboys are just too good of a team right now.
I would agree. And matchup monster probably goes without saying, it's CeeDee Lamb.
Good old CeeDee Lamb.
Big game. Detroit Lions and Los Angeles Rams at Ford Field.
I'm excited for this one.
Okay, so here's the thing. And so let's just preface this beforehand. We disagree on this one too. You've got the Lions winning. I've got the Rams winning. Why will the Lions win?
Man, honestly, I feel like as much as Lions fans love Matthew Stafford, this is the first time ever that they get to host a playoff game where this playoff game, have you seen the ticket prices for it at all?
I have.
It is double to triple all the other playoff games right now. Lions fans are going to pack the stadium, and honestly, I love both of these teams, and I think this is going to be one of the grittiest and best matchups that we're going to have all week.
What concerns me is Jared Goff. Is he going to be able to hold up under the pressure?
I think
That's a little bit of a concern for me.
Yeah, I think the fans will help with that a little bit, especially when you got players like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you got Jahmyr Gibbs and
David Montgomery.
Sam
LaPorta, if he's healthy.
I think he's out for this game, if I remember right. It was a pretty bad injury.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing part of it. Yeah.
I'm going to double check his injury.
Well, okay, so you've got the Lions winning that one, and I have the Rams, and here's the biggest thing about why I'm picking the Rams for this one. It's not necessarily that I'm thinking it's going to be a far and away victory for the Rams over the Lions. It might actually be pretty close. I have a lot of faith in Matthew Stafford. He's been playing excellent ball lately. Better ball than Jared Goff, I'd have to say. And he's got a great cast with him. Cooper Kupp, Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, all good threats to help him along the way. And because of that, I believe that the Rams are the dark horse of the playoffs right now. I believe that the Lions are looking at this and they're saying the Rams are no joke, even as a wild card team. And furthermore, we're talking about the Lions in this sense. I would say the same situation applies for higher seeded teams like the Cowboys and the 49ers. If I were the San Francisco 49ers right now in my bye week, I would be shaking in my boots about the possibility of having to play the Rams in the divisional round.
I mean, I think the Ravens are just as scared of the Browns having to play them in divisional round.
Because it's a divisional rivalry for one, which we know always makes things interesting, but the Rams are on the up and up.
Yeah.
They look scary. And I believe that is going to be enough for them in this wild card game. My matchup monster in this game, I am going to take Kyren Williams.
I think it's going to be a battle of the running backs. You're going to say Kyren Williams. I'm going to say Gibbs.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, it's going to be such a good game.
Yeah, it's the one I have to watch no matter what.
Yeah, I might have to sneak away and watch it.
Hey, Buccaneers and Eagles at Raymond James Stadium Monday. This one's a little harder. I mean, we both picked the Eagles to win. Let's talk about this.
It's close. It is close.
Yeah, let's get this out there first. Why do you think the Buccaneers will win? Why do you think it's going to be different?
You know, I think everyone's looking at the Buccaneers as just kind of like this very, very weak team. Like, they barely crept into the playoffs because the entire NFC South was bad. No one expects them to really get past the first round. But at the same time, the Eagles have looked like the worst team the past couple of weeks.
Yes, I totally agree with that, but I also concern myself with the fact of, and this is probably where a good lead into the situation with why we think the Eagles are going to win. The Panthers and the Falcons and the Saints are not the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are not looking good right now. The Eagles are not going to the Super Bowl. They're probably not even going to the NFC Championship. But they're better than the NFC South teams, and I think that is going to be an issue for the Buccaneers. And the Eagles, now there's maybe a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder mentality. It's not going to be enough, but it's going to be enough to beat the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and you're going to have to do it without A.J. Brown, so probably going to rely a little bit on your run game and probably have Devontae Smith step up a bit more.
I got DeAndre Swift in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. I think I'm going to go with Devontae Smith, mainly because he's been asking for the ball a lot lately, and now with A.J. Brown down, he is going to get all the targets.
Yep. Fair point. All right, those are our wild card picks, all predicted to be good games. I really would wager that all these are going to be good games because I still think it'd be curious to see how the Dolphins do against the Chiefs in that cold weather. Browns and Texans should be good. Bills and Steelers, yeah, that one might be one of the more boring ones.
Cowboys and Packers will probably be boring.
Well, are you sure? Because, I mean, we talked about past precedent with the Packers. You never know.
That's the only reason I'm like, that one might be interesting, but if I, turn on his first quarter and it's 17-0, I'm turning the game off.
Oh, no, I wouldn't blame you. And then we got Lions and Rams, probably going to be the best one, and Buccaneers and Eagles, which still could be very close. I don't think the Eagles are going to run away with it. But that's the wild card. Let's go into our For the Fun. This is our For the Fun Finals Award. So now get this for those who are, listening brand new. We do this every year, but recognize that this is not us predicting who is going to win the prestigious awards of the NFL. This is who we are giving these awards to.
A little
And
different.
so, of course, we've got our usual ones. Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, breathe, and MVP. So, most of these we agree on, so we can probably just ring it out there pretty quick. Shane, you got your soundboard ready?
Oh, let me pull up that soundboard. All right.
Okay. Shane and I are unanimous on this one. Our Coach of the Year winner, according to For the Fans, is DeMeco Ryans for the Houston Texans.
Nice little clap. Nice little clap. I like DeMeco Ryans. He took this team who had the second overall pick, got a quarterback, made some good decisions, and brought them into the playoffs. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah. Absolutely good work there. I have to give it to him. He probably won't end up winning it, but I think he should.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Also unanimous on this one. Our Comeback Player of the Year award goes to Joe Flacco of the Cleveland Browns.
You like that? You like that?
There we go.
That was good.
I'm like, I definitely need to add a
still,
few more.
I know that the highest odds are still for it going to DeMar Hamlin, but I feel like if we're going from a pure football sense, Flacco has been playing better football than DeMar Hamlin has.
Hamlin has the best story, yes, I will say that, but he hasn't been good this year, and as much as I want to be able to be like, oh yeah, DeMar Hamlin, he's the right end because he actually came back from nearly dying, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, I know a lot of people are going. I know Hamlin's probably going to get it because of the story, but I think a player is more deserving based off of where they were and how much they turned the team around.
Yes, exactly. All right, next one. Again, unanimous. Our Defensive Rookie of the Year award goes to Jalen Carter, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Woo! I don't have one for that because all the others are like kind of bad and sad noises. So.
Oh, okay. All right, you can just repeat some. You can repeat some.
I
anyway.
mean, it was like a little doink, which I'm just like, that might be kind of bad.
Oh, yeah. Jalen Carter has been dealing with some injuries, and I feel like on the defensive side, we have a couple of good picks there. Will Anderson was another good one, but I think we're going with Carter on this one. Stellar job there, for sure.
Now, I definitely have one for our Offensive Rookie of the Year.
All right. So, our Offensive Rookie of the Year award goes to Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, I'll say. All right.
I mean, he broke records. I feel like this was the very easiest, obvious choice.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. CJ Stroud's a good one too, but I feel like Puka Nacua, because of the record that he broke.
I think the records catapult him, and I think CJ Stroud will probably win the actual award considering he's brought his team to the playoffs. But this is our pick.
Yes, definitely. All right, Defensive Player of the Year award. And this is our last one that we're unanimous on. Our Defensive Player of the Year award goes to Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns. We got to go with this one. I know TJ Watt is kind of the favorite right now, but we got to go with this one because Myles Garrett and the defense, they were the anchor for this Browns team to remain in playoff contention for much of the season, and now with the 5 seed. And Myles Garrett, leader of that.
And I even looked at a couple, like I think Matt Crosby was thrown in there, TJ Watt was thrown in there. Let's see, Micah Parsons was up there. Defensive Josh Allen was there because I think he finished the season like second in stats or something like that. So there were some good candidates, but that Browns team would be very different without Myles Garrett.
Absolutely. Okay. We got 2 more here. Our Offensive Player of the Year award. We disagree on this one, and it will make sense when we talk about our MVP award at the end as well. So, Shane, your nominee for Offensive Player of the Year is Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins.
I do like some Tyreek Hill. I think, honestly, he's one of the best offensive players in the league right now, so I got to give it up to him.
My nominee for Offensive Player of the Year is Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. This will play in more when we talk about MVP here, but the reason I have to go with Christian McCaffrey here is because this is going to be the position where I have to award him, because I do have to give the MVP to someone else. Look, McCaffrey has been great. He has easily been one of the best and most consistent offensive players of the year. And because of him being healthy, I think it kind of puts his case a little bit ahead of Tyreek Hill. But for that one, we have to give different nominees for, and we may have to make a decision here in a second as far as who we give that award officially
And
to.
I did give the sad horn to you just because I am disappointed that he is not an MVP for you.
And I will explain why in a second, why my opinion changed. First of all, Shane, we got to talk about the MVP award here. So now, we just called his name just now, Shane's nominee for MVP is Christian McCaffrey.
Honestly, I feel like the 49ers wouldn't be half the team that they are without him.
I could agree with that, but I also feel like the 49ers were in contention when they didn't have McCaffrey last year.
I mean, I'll give you that.
Yeah. But here's the thing, because you've been hearing me for most of this season saying that McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill should be the MVP, and it shouldn't be a quarterback award. And you know what? If that did still happen, I'd totally be on board with it. But what solidified my nominee, or for why I picked them, it happened during the Week 18 game. My nominee for most valuable player is Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens, and here is why. For a while there, we were kind of thinking, oh my gosh, Shane, of course.
No, I'm like, you should know what I'm referencing with that.
Yes. I know, that's why I was like, oh no.
For those who don't...
I gotta go.
Lamar Jackson ran onto the side of the field, and he's like, I gotta go. Ran to the bathroom because he needed to take a dump, and then ran back to the field and ran back on the field.
And balled out after that.
Yeah, so... neat. When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Right? Okay, but here's the thing. So, Lamar Jackson, he has been putting up good numbers. Now, obviously, his numbers I don't think were necessarily considered MVP worthy compared to other quarterbacks. Yes, he's had good games. Did well against the 49ers, who are the other best team in the NFL. Balled out against the Dolphins and looked absolutely amazing. We were wondering if that did solidify his case for MVP. What did it for me is the fact that Lamar sat in Week 18. And his backup, Tyler Huntley, who for some reason was in the Pro Bowl last year, Tyler Huntley came in there with still a lot of the starters for the Ravens in there, with still much of that same team in there, and could not make it happen.
Yeah, now the Steelers have a ticket to the playoffs.
Exactly. To me, that signifies that Ravens team would be rather poor if they did not have Lamar Jackson as their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that. I'm just very tired of the MVP just always basically being a quarterback award.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm very much of the mindset, I'm like, we should just change Offensive Player of the Year to MVP and then change MVP to Best Quarterback.
Right. Let me put it to you this way, just to essentially give us who our winners are going to be for this year. Reaching a compromise here. I'm going to agree with you on this end because for much of the season until just now, the consensus has been we should give the Offensive Player of the Year award to Tyreek Hill, if not to Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to agree with you and say that the Offensive Player of the Year award goes to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Official. And with that being said, the MVP award for the fans for this year goes to Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Lamar.
No, I'm going to say it's Christian McCaffrey because up until this week, we were both saying it has to be McCaffrey, not Lamar. And so I might as well just stick with that for the time being, even though I did have my opinion on it change.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that if it's not CMC, I would probably put Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm. But with that, that is the end of our For the Fun. That is the end of our awards for this season. And with that, that is the end of our episode here. We've covered some questions about coaches. We've covered some interesting end-of-season games. And we've talked about the wild card matchups, which should be pretty captivating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sad to say that the regular season's over. I feel like it just started not that long ago. We're already at the end of the regular season, moving into playoff time.
You know what? Playoffs are still always fun for us to do on this podcast,
Oh, yeah.
Shane. And then at that point, as soon as the playoffs are over, I know it's kind of fun for us to get a little break in there. But then after that, we get to do the draft. The draft episode is so fun.
The
I'm
draft
already
is
looking forward
always
to it.
fun because what we like to do for the draft, we like to do that one live for at least like the first 10, 12 pits or so.
Something around there.
We like to do a good amount of the pits of the first night, have a little banter of getting our live reactions of what each team is grabbing, why they're grabbing that, and then we break down like each player is like, do we think this was a good match for this team? Do we think it was a bad match? Did people reach? Did people make a good deal? Because I think last year when we were talking about CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, we talked a while about the Panthers giving up so much for Bryce Young and the Bears getting away with everything.
Mm-hmm. It was good. It was good, and I'm looking forward to it again.
But with that, we will see you guys all next week after Wildcard Weekend, and we will be moving on to the divisional round.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.